Okay. Hi, Deb.
Jared, what did you just say about announcing? Do you want Chuck to do it?
I've got the.
I'm fine doing it. I just want poets to announce their
Oh, okay,
for
okay.
people following along.
I'm to do it.
Are other people signing in on the participant side?
You're just not able to see them.
Okay.
So we are now getting started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this reading for Halfway to the North Pole. I'm Jared Santek, Artistic Director at Right On. And that was one of my announcements I was going to make, but maybe make it now. If you could mute your microphones, that'd be appreciated. So I'm Jared Santek, Artistic Director at Right On, and we're really happy to be collaborating with the Dickinson Poetry Series to present this reading this evening. If you are not familiar with Right On, I think everyone here is, but we have some great programs coming up, including a poetry, including 2 workshops with poets. One is actually on making comics with the poet Crystal Gibbons. That's going to be this Saturday morning. And then Monday evening, the poet Catherine Young is going to be leading a multi-genre workshop on writing about water. So I hope you'll check out those opportunities and others coming up at Right On. I do want to acknowledge that Right On sits on the lands of Indigenous peoples, specifically land that is home to the Potawatomi, as well as the Winnebago Ho-Chunk, Ojibwe, Sauk, Menominee, and Ottawa tribes. These tribes were forced to leave. However, this is still their land and home, and it always will be. And we at Right On will continue to acknowledge it as such. So a few housekeeping things for our readers. If you would please keep your microphones muted, except for when you are reading, that would be appreciated. If you prefer to turn your video off, you may do so, but please remember to turn it back on when it's your turn to read. And I think people really love to have the facial expressions and recognition, so please do feel free to leave that on. Listeners, you may prefer to use the speaker view rather than gallery view so you can better see each reader. You can change that by clicking up on the little grid of dots in the upper right-hand corner that says view, and then select speaker. Sometimes people find the lighting or other things in the speaker's background distracting, in which case you may want to switch it back to gallery view. So with those housekeeping announcements, I would like to turn it over to Chuck Lauder from the Dickinson Poetry Series. Chuck.
There you go.
I hope there are lots of people out there who have joined us as listeners and participants in that way. And I would offer a very strong good evening and welcome to this, the November 2020 iteration of the Emily Dickinson series of the UU Fellowship of Door County. Usually the presentation is a featured reader followed by an open mic. The Door County Poets Collective has just released its 2nd anthology. This evening will be the 2nd public reading of poems from Halfway to the North Pole. These poems seek to express the interior life of the county and encourage you to explore the back roads and byways. The book contains 66 poems by 66 poets. This evening we will have about 20 poems. Now I have to say, maintaining the Dickinson series has been a bit of a struggle during the pandemic, but many people have made it happen. Sarah McKillop the UU administrator has, as usual, worked wonders with the technology and the publicity. The scheduled featured readers have been wonderfully flexible, using different technical approaches, timing, and even substitute readers. In fact, this evening, our scheduled reader has relinquished her spot for this program. And Right On has been instrumental in the launching of the new publication. We thank Jared for arranging and hosting this webinar. So let's begin.
Thank you, Chuck. Our first reader tonight is David Clowers.
Yes, thank you, Jared. Thank you very much, Chuck. And I suppose it's appropriate that my poem, which is on page 24 of Halfway to the North Pole, writes about my cabin home, which is about 100 feet south of the actual 45th parallel, which is the northern boundary of my 30 acres of Door County woods. The poem is also a take after Yeats's Isle of Innisfree poem, and it is not, of course, Yeats, but my cabin home is built upon the Niagara Escarpment that runs across the north until the falls, and it sits hunched against the wind, so that when a tornado came, the whirlwind could not blow my little shelter down, while maple, birch, and beech fell all around it. An iron stove gives back wood heat to warm the space below, from where a ladder leads to a sleeping place with windows open to the sky, and there I'm free to find the peace that waits for me besides my lantern's glow. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next reader is Lee Lavoie.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you, Chuck. My poem is on page 25 in the anthology, and I wanted to mention that we've lived in Ellison Bay now for 21 years. My poem tells a story of how we were drawn to Door County over 50 years ago and what our land means for us. My husband's mother was born in Ireland in County Roscommon, and he would call our land Roscommon West. Reading this poem tonight feels like a tribute to my husband, Hugh, who died in February this year. Roscommon West. In the early days as tourists, newlywed, we are lured to Door County, a place where water is so clear you can see the bottom, our friend proclaims. We feel drawn to the northern edge of the peninsula, to the quiet simplicity of Ellison Bay, renting a rustic cottage on the bluff with our growing family. Stone fences, gentle rolling hills, green meadows attract us, reminiscent of the family farm in Ireland. A longing for land leads us to search during summer vacations, carrying our toddler son over tall grasses and wildflowers. A call during a snowstorm offering 17 acres is more than we can afford on a teacher's salary. Yet the dream pulls us to own this land with its tree line of towering birch, open meadows blooming with hawkweed, coreopsis, black-eyed Susan, ox-eye daisy. A door opens to work in Sturgeon Bay after our children are grown. The dream pulls us to live on our land, and call Door County home. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Our next reader is Carl Elder.
Well, hello, everyone. I look forward to hearing everyone read. By the way, I thought I might mention I graduated out of high school in 1966, which sounds like a magic number tonight. It being Veterans Day, I thought the piece that I'm going to be reading for you, that's on page 30, is appropriate. And I just simply want to mention that this piece is done in the mode of Spoon River Anthology. Spoon River Anthology, by the way, is the only book of American poems that's consistently been in print since 1915. So the piece is called Increase Claflin. It's a dramatic monologue, of course. I, husband to my Mary, she, about whom little is known, so that I speak from the grave of her grave countenance in the face of all she faced, faithful to me and my wandering disposition. Soldier I was in a line of soldiers, then overlord of many in my employ, whom Mary kindly mothered along with our children as, over time, we moved from Boston to New Orleans, then up Big Muddy to become the first white folk to settle on the thumb of the high-held hand that is Wisconsin. Haven, the Potawatomi called heaven. In harmony we lived, for a scare. Our eldest husband scorn for our neighbor's ways had him fiddling fools with firewater till brothers attacked. And I, with my Scots bloodline and barrel chest, I fought back with a keg they thought was whiskey, but black powder instead. I say unto you, it is strength that staves off annihilation, that makes for peace. As for Mary, full of charity, she knew no privilege, save to one day send, she and I, our 3 sons off to old Abe to help save the country and end slavery. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Carl. Our next reader is Karen Wilson.
Hello, everybody. I think my poem is on page 31. I've lived full-time in Door County since 1977. So I've been here long enough to see some changes. But when my forebears came here in 1881 to settle in Sevastopol Township, they entered a land far different from what we see today. My poem draws on personal family history that was preserved anecdotally and passed on through the generations. It's called Settlers. There's a grave in the cemetery at Jacksonport. Headstone no longer legible, but I traced it years ago. Anna Herbst, now so long dead, brought from the old country by her granddaughter, who earlier settled here with her husband, where they cleared the old growth forest to create a farm and raise a family whose descendants now dot Door County and the world, including me, once a far-flung twig from that early tree, now comfortably settled here back among my roots. I cannot imagine the daily life of my young ancestor who came from an old civilization to a raw new place, worked alongside her husband to tame the wild land, finding it necessary to tie her little children to the porch rail for fear they would wander into the forest and be utterly lost. Maybe it was homesickness for her family and for relief from a hard life that later, when they began to prosper, she brought her parents from Germany to live near her, and also her grandma, Anna Herbst, all buried here as I will be.
Thank you, Karen. Our next reader is Kathleen Harris. Is she here? I don't see her on the screen. We'll move on then to Sandra Lindau.
You hear me? Okay. We are on page 56 in your book. And this is called September, Washington Island, Words on Water. And last year, I won the Norbert Bly Award and was invited to the Words on Water conference. And I had such a lovely time. And this poem was written sitting on a bench beside the water, Lake Michigan. And I was looking at the patterns of the light on the water. And so the poem tries to recapture the pattern of the water, as well as what I was thinking about as I sat on the bench. September, Washington Island, Words on Water. Sunlight on water, sparking up. Photon gulls rising, dissolving. Sweet sustenance of place, where air and water meet. Daughter of water. Daughter of the daughter of water. Sunday's sonogram. Grammar of light and dark, the luxuriant bulge of a belly, womb walls slashed, child in amniotic, revealed having discovered her thumb. Clamshell lips, a smudge of fist, gull girl rising. Never more perfect than this flowing this. Full circles, water within, water without. And I want to tell you that I had actually seen a sonogram that morning that was my massage therapist, who became pregnant while being my practitioner, and she sent me the sonogram that morning. And so I was thinking about that as I watched the light on the water. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Sandra. Our next reader is Christine Swanberg. I'm not sure that she has joined us. Christine? Okay, then moving on to Susan Twiggs.
Jared, you might want to resend the link because I had difficulty finding it. So if you can.
And it was sent to everyone again at 6 o'clock, Sandra. So, but yeah, I can check back in with the two who haven't shown up.
Okay.
Susan.
Thank you, Jared, for hosting this. My poem is titled Falling Stairs, and it is on page 62 if you're looking at the book. In 2018, my husband and I attended the Recharge Your Battery workshop with Jim Mahaley at Right On. One day we took a field trip to the Edgewood Orchard Galleries in Fish Creek and wrote in their outdoor garden. The sculptures became our prompts and our inspiration. I chose the piece Falling Stairs by Stephen Haas. Falling stairs. I've heard of falling down the stairs. Sarah's ankle broke when she tumbled. I tripped coming up the stairs, my shin purple and chartreuse. I've never heard of falling stairs, the planks slowly cascading, gaining momentum as they tumble, rumble, topsy-turvy, like logs rolling down rapids until they collapse onto a heap, still, silent, a sculpture. Thank you for your listening and for attending.
Thank you, Susan. Our next reader is Baptiste Paul.
All right, so I got to unmute. Hi, everybody. My poem is on page 66, and it's called Bly and I. And the reason why I wrote this poem, I've been to Right On many times, and that little cabin, there's something magical about that little cabin where it sits. And I was so drawn to it, and the typewriter sitting right out the window, and I was just looking out. And I was overcome with a lot of emotions that day when I wrote this. So it's a very short poem, and it starts off like this. Keys, black, white, like me, like you. Your typewriter and my computer, both words and open windows. Oh, how those keys bridge worlds. Although we never met in person, like friends, we smiled at each other. We stayed silent with each written key. We hope our combined works teach empathy. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Baptiste. Our next reader is Marilyn Zelke Window.
A little technologically deficient. Can you hear me? Okay. I was born and raised in Chicago of Wisconsin parentage, and we have been enjoying Door County for many, many years, going to Peninsula State Park with our family and camping and enjoying the theater in the woods. And this is where my poem comes from. I'm originally an art teacher, and so the call of Door County is also there for that reason. And then there's the lavender fields on Washington Island. Today is 11/11, and one of my 3 daughters, the eldest, said to me via email today that 11/11 represents doorways, a door from the past and a door opening to the future. And I like that idea. This is my poem. Northern Skies, Gould Theater. Done with the outdoor seated season in the woodland hollow of Peninsula State Park, cast and crew inaugurate a new theater away from the hubbub of Fish Creek. Down County Road A, we follow the Northern Skies constellations and the drama of impulsive deer to the new Gould Theater. Plays presented there expose inherent Wisconsin themes: ice fishing, Packers loyalty, hunting, and lumbering. Humor is the protagonist. One actor, Doug Mancheski, begins his 23rd season with the Thespians this year. He is a master of muttering and sneering. It comes on suddenly, but naturally. And the audience claps and laughs, anticipates the next downward turn of his chin and upraised lip. Night is quiet upon exiting. We drive back to Fish Creek, occasionally chuckling, remembering a line, imitating a grimace. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Marilyn. Next, we have Donna Johnson.
Thank you. You can find my poem on page 76, and it's entitled Cherries. Traveling east on Meadow, I come upon a truck with a load of cherries swimming in water to protect the precious fruit. Spurts of water leap up sporadically as the truck travels the rough country road, imitating their big city cousins in those fancy dancing fountains. Traces of cherries that met an untimely end at the hands of a careless driver who took a turn too quickly form an art red swath on the pavement. Dashed dreams of cherry bars, cherry bounce, chopped cherry jam, cherry cider, cherry pie, cherry salsa, cherry stuffed French toast, and countless other cherry delights. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Now that you've made us all hungry for cherries, our next reader is Francia Barnard.
Hi. You'll find my poem right next door to Donna's on page 77, if you have the book with you. Since I've been living here full-time for 15 years and part-time before that, I find that I am more and more enamored with the perks of small town living. So my poem is about one of those perks here in Bailey's Harbor. Honor system shopping. In a handcart at the edge of a yard, 3 homes west on County EE, a bounty appears in late July and reappears daily till the end of fall, though the farmer is never seen. You can follow the harvest by crops in his cart. First, mixed lettuce, at least 6 kinds in purple and green, each offering a different shape, taste, and bite. Then broccoli, tight new baby heads. Carrots taste like carrots, fat and sunrise orange. Beets, their long greens peeking from a bucket. Cabbages, red and white and heavy. Parsnips on lucky days, ready for roasting. Cauliflower heads of creamy white and gold. Last, squashes, butternut, patty pan, acorn, and pumpkins for carving and others for baking. Tiny prices appear on each piece, all paid in the honor system in a wide-mouthed jar for your coins and bills and for making change. Another with bags to ferry home your load. No corn though. His brothers on the farm around the corner specialize in that. Fill a wheelbarrow of cobs and replenish it often. Same honor system used for payment. Thank you.
Thank you, Francia. Next, we have Tori Grant Wellhouse.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. My poem is the next page, page 78, and it is called Cooking Lesson. And it's about exactly that, a cooking lesson at a popular Door County restaurant. Cooking lesson. The chef wears the black shoes chefs wear, slip resistant. At our prep stations, we see the sun rising above the sink. The chef outlined in lemon yellow curd like toast. My husband and I wear aprons, crisp and white. There are other couples at other stations. We can't see the harbor, but hear it lapping with spring, swelling the silvery sheen of the kitchen, stainless steel everywhere, like an ocean liner prowling. The chef shares the menu, stuffed turkey breast, bacon-wrapped asparagus, homemade coffee ice cream. She hands us a silver ring with recipe cards, cooking tips. The father of my children is impressed by the sharpness of knives. I like how she washes her hands by turning the water on and off with her elbows. We compare breasts. His is precision, meaty. Mine is tender, spiced with flecks of pepper. We have an urge to kiss, but rub shoulders instead. The chef rolls leaves of basil like a cigar, showing us how to chiffonade. She recommends a brand of bacon we will search for, reminiscing the weekend, intimacy in the smell of his neck, the care she takes with each ingredient, handling carefully, each part precious as memory. The ice cream churn turns thick with cream and sugar. We slowly pour a dark stream of brewed Arabica from a press, grounds steeped by time and fair trade, drums swirling a tender balance of bitter and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Our next reader is Lauren Bremer Ward.
You'll find my poem on page 81. My husband is a restaurant owner and a bartender in the service industry of Northern Door County. So many of us are familiar with that lifestyle and what it's like from about Memorial Day to Labor Day. We've started a tradition the last few years of finding a few days to sneak away in September together to some Wisconsin location to catch up and look at each other in daylight. That's what this is about. It's called Sitting on Time. The South Shore of Rock Island. We came here together to find the quiet after summer madness. After the 14-hour workdays, passing each other on tiptoes in the dark, early mornings and late nights, our selfless gifts, our sleeping hours. Now in silence we sit, slurping up one another's faces in daylight. Here, we first see the newly trenched lines and furrows dragged by a busy summer. The dollar bills back home are packed tightly together like cordwood, ready to burn in the dead of winter. But now, we assess the filtering sun, the pounds gained, the angle of the tent, the ache of desire, the utter exhaustion of arriving. The stone beach through the trees sighs with waves that started in Chicago last week, landing here, heaving and churning. Do you hear that? What, the waves? No, the sound after. The rumble of rocks receding back, tossed upon one another, tumbling like a washing machine, wearing down edges, corners. A sharp second before the next. The deep Michigan green, the foamy peaks, then the rumble, pulling them all back. It's like watching time, like watching it all happen fast and slow. They must be exhausted. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Our next reader is Kathleen Hayes Phillips.
Hi, it's good to see all of you all the way from Milwaukee. I really looked forward to this. This is one of the few years in a long time that I haven't been able to get up to Door County, and I really miss it. It was about 75 years ago that I first saw Door County. My father saved coupons, the gas stamps from the war. He saved enough so that we could make the drive up to Door County. It was about 1946. I was 10 years old. He had been he had worked in a cherry picking camp when he was at Marquette in the 1920s, and he couldn't wait to show us Door County because it was his favorite place in the world. And from that time on, our family has always had a connection to Door County. So needless to say, I wrote my poem about him. One night I stood with my father on a pier at the end of the world. Stars so close they seemed within reach of his hand. His fingers able to trace the Big Dipper, hold the North Star in its place. I heard of the hunter that night, found his belt, and together we searched for the swan, felt ourselves part of the Milky Way. He called out Aurora Borealis and magic happened, bands of vivid green, purple and pink flashing, flaring long into the night. Over the years, my father lost the secrets of the sky, forgot the magic words to light the dark. But on those nights when I find Orion's belt or watch the northern skies glowing in ribbons of color, I feel him near, hear his voice describing the wonder overhead. And even now, I don't want to miss a word. Thank you. He'd have liked that.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next, we have Deborah Johnston.
Hi, my poem is found on page 97, and this is my love letter to Door County and the arts and theater. Time Traveler. I followed the trail that led into the shadows of the dark woods. Once in, I waited near a rope, was handed spray for my limbs, and a flashlight beamed where to sit. I was transported back to the turn of the century, no longer a tourist. A sailing rig became a working voyage as I tried to retrieve a piano and developed a love affair. In previous summer visits alongside German prisoners of war, I harvested our bountiful orchards. The next year, I rolled up my sleeves and tackled shipbuilding because our men were overseas. Time, place, culture, history. It's all there under the stars. Journey with the Northern Sky Theater. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, we have Kathleen Surley. Is Kathleen still with us? I know she was
Oh,
here.
yes, I'm here.
Oh.
I'm here. I forgot to unmute myself. Okay. Thank you for inviting me to this. It's just so it's a lot of fun. I don't live in Door County, but I love to visit, and one of my favorite places to be is the clearing, and I especially like exploring the grounds. And this poem is written about the rocky shoreline that runs below the campus, and especially the cairns that are constructed or built along. It's not really a beach for walking, but people like to arrange the rocks. So this is called, it's on page 104, and it's called Statements Made in Passing. Gray on gray, fragments of forgotten boulders fill miles of deserted shore, a beach where tumbled stones inhibit strolling. So I seem alone, except for water and the wind-bowed trees. Yet ahead of me, 7 wave-cut rocks, stacked square on circle and balanced by design, rise from the thousands similar, a statement made in passing. I ponder what to add, Move on at first, then turn, bend, wrap my hand around a wind-rubbed, sun-warmed rock, too heavy for skipping, and set it atop those already placed, lengthening the sculpture's shadow slightly as the Great Lake pulses, tuned to rhythms of its own. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next, we have Sharon Auberly.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. My poem, October Day at Three Springs, is on page 109, and it's about a place up here in Liberty Grove where I live year-round, and an old settler's ruin, well, a barn, and actually the house is there too. But the poem is called October Day at Three Springs, and it begins with an epigraph by the poet Susan Elby. If autumn is a time of tears and courage, as the Chinese believe, then let us hitch ourselves to ruin. On this tender afternoon, there's no thinking of the past, not of those who tread on my heart, not of things that happened I felt shouldn't have, or places I went unwisely. The future is not tugging at me saying, oh, what if? Just my dog and his happy love covering my face with kisses. Tamaracks are beginning their season of gold, and the air is alive with red dragonflies, the symbols, legends say, of death and transformation. Around me, rotting wild apples return graciously to earth. A settler's ancient harrow rusts beside the barn, built by him with bright hope. And sunlight turns my dog's muzzle to silver. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And Christine Swanberg has joined us. Christine, if you're ready, and if you'll let us know what page number your poem is on. And Christine, you're muted. No, you had turned the mute off, but we still couldn't hear you for some reason. And
Is that better?
yes.
Okay.
Great.
I'm not sure what happened. I have a new laptop that is giving me lots of trouble. Sorry about that. I'm on page 57, and I thank you for including me. I live in Rockford, Illinois, but I've been going to Door County pretty much ever since I was 20, and I'm 71 now, so that's a lot of time. This is called When I Fell in Love with Monarchs. Sometimes while trying to save monarchs in my backyard sanctuary, I remember when I first fell in love with them. 1978, Door County, late summer, crossing Death's Door to Washington Island, then Rock Island with a pup tent, sleeping bags, and a little food. Behold, goldenrod, milkweed, and Milky Way of monarchs. Thousands, maybe millions breathing, calypso of wings beating, so that when the wind gentled, we could hear them pulsing, gliding, a shimmering bay of orange and black. We walked among them so softly, yet our presence caused an uproar, or maybe it was just a dance, landing on us, cavorting, spiraling, paper wings like confetti, for miles it seemed, before my first Green Bay sunset with its golden Jacob's ladder, tremulous like the monarchs heading in for the night. All of us under the vast Milky Way, no lights or stars to intrude as we made our way back to the tiny pup tent. Under a canopy of a billion stars, the settling of a million sashaying wings cocoon in our orange sleeping bags.
Thank you, Christine. That concludes our readers. I'd like to invite anyone who has questions to enter them into the chat, and we'll share them with our readers. And maybe if you have questions for each other or comments to make, please just turn off your mics and share that with us. But while we're waiting for any comments or questions to come in, Estella, can you give us some background into the process, how many submissions, and how you in the collective chose to organize the anthology? And Estella, we had lost you for a moment, and you're muted, but if you wanted to tell us some about the process. And I'm not sure, there we go. And Estella, I think we've lost your audio.
Okay. Well, the process started. Hear me? No.
Estella, we're having trouble with your audio. So
Okay.
maybe if Annette or Tom or someone else involved in the process can speak to it, since we're not able to hear you.
Maybe Nancy or Francha or Tom. Sorry.
How about Francha
I
speaking?
can't see any way to.
There's Tom.
Sorry.
Estella, your audio is better now. You might want to go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The process, okay. The process started more than a year ago. And has involved 16 people, 17 actually winning of it. Soundings, what was it, 15? So 7 people, I think. And actually much of the, and then another set of people did the proofreading, and another set has been involved in finding the images, the photographs, and marketing. So it's taken a lot of coordination and has been, I think, a very exciting process again. And I recommend it to others who may want to do a similar kind of work with Poetry of Place. I just loved hearing you read this. The poems really come alive. Beautifully, and they're really wonderful.
Well, it's a beautiful anthology. So thank you for all the work that you and everyone in the collective did to make this possible and bring it into the world. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone out there? Susan.
Yes, I just wondered where we could get additional copies.
Right.
I can speak to that. These are available, for starters, Nancy Rafal has copies where she is, but they are available in our local bookstores. In the Door County bookstores, they're available at the Clearing Bookstore, and it's in person and online. Other Worlds Books and More, Novel Bay Bookstore, Sturgeon Bay, and then Lion's Mouth Bookstore in Green Bay. And I believe all these bookstores you can order online, so you don't have to be in those communities to get the books.
And they're also available online at Right On's website as well.
Sorry about that. Right. Yes.
Right. And as a contributor, you know, if you order from Right On, make sure you tell them you're a contributor. So.
I think they're also available from Tom Davis's website as well. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, you can order there, though it's good to order from Right On, I think, and give Right On some support.
Okay.
But you can go to 4windowspress1.com and you can get it there. But again, I recommend going to Right On. We want to support Right On.
And I would like to add that if anybody has any other places that think should carry the book, send that information to Lauren at Right On, and she can forward it to me, especially if you have the name of a contact person, the store, the phone number, the mailing address, then I can make sure that they get the wholesale work on it.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there other questions, comments? Susan?
I don't have a question, but I just have to say how wonderful it is to see all these people here and hear all the poetry. It was wonderful.
Yes, it was. And Susan?
Yes, I know that this is dedicated to Phil Hensosha. And I wondered if someone could read Phil's poem. I believe he has a poem in here. And he obviously will not be reading it himself.
I would be glad to do that. Can you hear me again? I don't know what's the matter with my audio. Is it okay?
Yes.
Can you hear it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Phil's poem, which is on page 36, is titled The Poetry of Norbert Bly. He left noiselessly, taking his sense of poetry with him. He sat in those words. For him, his cup of coffee was a poem. The unfinished moon and the howl of a coyote, a poem. A fallen tree and a crow complaining of his presence, a poem. He drew stick figures and spoke sentences that dangled and floated like fragments, in the wind. He'd call that a wind poem. For him, sunsets, old men, ripe apples, and old typewriters that could speak no more were poems. The last time I saw him, he was at Scandia. He did not speak, but squeezed my hand. I left without a word. The next day, he died. I suppose that was a poem, too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Estella, for reading that. Are there any final thoughts or questions? Well, I want to thank you all. Oh, Lee, yes.
I think that Estella and Chuck deserve a round of applause for their creative work again for this anthology and for bringing us all together. I'm very grateful to be part of this this reading and that my poem was included. So I just am so grateful, and then to be able to see each of you. And thank you, Jared. You also deserve a round of applause. A lot of work to get all this together. I just have one question. Do you have a sense of how many listeners there might be for this tonight?
We had the most participants we have was 44. We've kind of gone up and down, but 44.
Very good.
Well,
Well,
that's
thank you for
lovely.
your work. Thank you.
Jared, I think that one nice way to end might be to have the poems by the oldest and the youngest poets read, if we have time. Do you think we do?
Sure. Yeah, we have the time.
Or are we out of time? Okay, let's start with Tom. He's going to read Barbara Larson.
Want me to read Barbara Larson's poem, I assume?
Tom?
Barbara Larson's poem?
Yes. Mhm.
This is by
Yes.
Barbara Larson, the oldest poet in the book. It's called Windstorm Off the Bay. Sound awakens me, powerful and steady, like monstrous turbines that work in the next room. Outside, a giant tree whirl riz in frenzy, lashing branches break and hit the roof. I hear the snarl of wind beyond the walls, relentless pounding of the waves below the cliff. My mind struggles to cope with elemental forces, overwhelming power. Will the house stand firm? Pursued by weather wolves, I dig beneath the covers and flee into the sanctuary of sleep.
Yeah. And Annette, maybe Anita's poem?
I had the youngest.
Anita Beckstrom.
Oh, I've got that.
Oh, you have the youngest. All right.
I have the youngest. But you
Nancy
want the
has
youngest
that.
or finish the old?
Okay, I'll read Anita's.
Let's go with Nancy.
Okay. I'm hoping you can all hear me. Anita is a rare commodity because she is a native of Door County, not a transplant like a lot of us. And and her poem is entitled Early 1940s. A huge banner stretched across the highway, going down the hill and around the curve on the Sawyer side of Sturgeon Bay. Welcome to Cherryland, it said. Then the exciting drive over the magical steel bridge that crossed the water to the island since the canal was built of northern Door County. We are going to Grandma and Grandpa's farm in Sister Bay, where I was born. 4 kids in the back seat. Youngest stood on the front seat between Mom and Dad. No seat belts, no air conditioning. A lot of shortcut roads were gravel. We usually had at least one flat tire stop. Thank you.
That was fun. So you ready for the youngest?
Anita
in
is.
Door County?
Yeah.
The youngest is a student at Sevastopol High School. It says here in her bio that she was a junior, but I'll bet by now she's a senior. Olivia Stenzel, and she has lived her whole life in Door County also. She writes about a very common, well-known thing in Door County, picking stones. Powdery brown soil with too many stones, crackling beneath our souls like bones. Dried out from the summer's sun, needed picking to be done. The midday sun bronzing our skin as we toss many rocks in the bin. Droplets of sweat making my cousin's forehead wet. We moan and ache to take a break, or we beg to be in the fresh lake. But in the end, we are happy to lend our helping hand. Our youngest poet, Olivia Stenzel.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for wonderful readings. And
Well, thank you all so very much. So lovely evening. Thank you, Estella and Chuck. Thank you all our readers and all of our listeners whom we can't see, but we're smiling at you and thanking you for being with us. So thank you all. Have a good night. I don't have to tell you to drive safely, so that's something.
Good night.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.